Let's dive right into this explainer. From 1914 to 1945, Ukraine was defined by visceral, chaotic violence. Yet post-war Soviet policy enforced a highly sanitized, entirely manufactured narrative. Welcome in! Today, we're going to unpack an absolute masterclass in how history is written, unwritten, and completely overwritten. Seriously, think about it for a second. What actually happens when an entire state just erases its most violent past? It's like a giant puzzle with half the pieces intentionally thrown away. Today, we're exploring the massive gap between what happened on the ground, the chaos, the blood, the overlapping factions, and what was officially allowed to be remembered. When reality doesn't fit a government's heroic storyline, what happens to the truth? Part 1. The Chaotic Revolutionary Years. Let's look at the time before state memory took over. To really grasp the scale of this historical erasure, you've got to understand how messy the reality actually was. We are not talking about isolated incidents spaced years apart, right? We're looking at overlapping, consecutive waves of absolute violence. You had mass terror in Kyiv in early 1918, then boom, the Lviv pogrom hits in November, and that's followed by the devastating Perestroika pogrom in 1919. Entire communities were just decimated in rapid succession. Part 2. 3 pogroms, 3 totally different fates. Let's check out the leaders behind the violence. You can track the sheer chaos of this era by looking at the deeply specific, honestly almost absurd fates of 3 distinct commanders. They represented completely different factions. You've got Mikhail Muravyov organizing for the Bolsheviks in Kyiv, Ivan Semisenko, a military leader down in Pskov, and Czeslaw Mączynski with the Polish military in Lviv. Each guy leaves this massive trail of destruction, yet faces a wildly different destiny. First up is Mikhail Muravyov. He orchestrated the mass terror in Kyiv back in February of 1918 on behalf of the Bolsheviks. But here's the ultimate irony. He wasn't punished for those massacres. Instead, he was shot by those very same Bolsheviks just a few months later. Why? Because he joined an anti-Bolshevik coup in July of 1918. He literally built the terror apparatus for his faction, only to be consumed by it the second he switched sides. Now, the fate of Ivan Semisenko, the leader of the Perestroika pogrom, is even more surreal. Our sources tell us he was actually being treated for syphilis in the exact same city where the pogrom took place. And according to local Jewish legend, he was supposedly haunted at night by a local rabbi's ghost telling him to get out of the city. His actual legal fate was just as convoluted. The Ukrainian National Republic government sentenced him to death, but the court literally had to run for their lives from an attack by the Denikin army, which allowed Semisenko to just go free. He eventually got executed a year later in the spring of 1920, but get this, the reasoning was a mess. It was either for the pogrom or for rebelling against his leader, Petliura. The sheer convolution of his life and death just perfectly captures the utter lawlessness of the era. And in total stark contrast to those two, we have Czeslaw Mączynski, who was responsible for the pogrom of Lviv Jews. He didn't face a firing squad or fleeing courts. No way! He went on to enjoy a highly prosperous political career in interwar Poland. We're talking high military positions, even becoming a member of parliament. He retired peacefully to an estate, and when he died in 1935, they buried him with high military honors at a cemetery he helped create, a cemetery meant to demonstrate the greatness of the Polish martial spirit. So you have 3 perpetrators and 3 entirely different universes of accountability. Part 3. The Soviet Memory Erasure. Here is how they started rewriting reality. Basically, the state comes in and decides that the chaotic reality we just walked through simply could not exist in the public's mind anymore. The factional infighting, the absurd fates of these leaders, completely erased, never mentioned again in post-war Soviet Ukraine. From then on, textbooks and public discourse only allowed events that pumped up a strictly heroic version of the Bolsheviks. The messiness of reality was just surgically removed from the record. And they pulled this off through absolute visual and cultural dominance. The propaganda of the era actively plastered right over the bloody reality, projecting this highly controlled, totally sanitized atmosphere that ignored not only the early pogroms, but the ongoing state terror that followed. Think about it. If you lived back then, the images surrounding you every single day reinforced a history that never actually happened. The visual culture completely crowded out the violent truth. But, the terror didn't magically stop just because the posters looked heroic. Even the guys enforcing the official state terror couldn't escape the chaotic reality they helped build. Take Nikolai Yezhov, a major figure in the NKVD. He ended up getting shot during Stalin's next wave of purges, and his downfall is so incredibly revealing. His investigation included a fatal denunciation from a fellow NKVD agent. But the system was so paranoid, so inherently destructive, that the very agent who ratted out Yazov was himself shot later on. The eraser just kept turning back on itself. Part 4. Rewriting the Great War. Deleting history on a global scale. Which brings us to what might literally be the ultimate flex of narrative control in Soviet history. To make the Second World War fit their neat, heroic storyline, the Soviet Union pulled off a staggering feat of historical deletion. They shortened the timeline of the most devastating global conflict in human history by 2 full years. 2 whole years. Officially, those years just did not exist. So how do you even do that? Well, first, you rebrand the whole thing entirely. They called it the Great Patriotic War. Then, they shifted the official start date in the state's memory to June 22, 1941. That was the day Nazi Germany launched its treacherous attack. By doing that, the state effectively wiped the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact right out of existence for the public. That whole period where the Soviet Union had a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany just cut out of the story entirely. By starting the clock in 1941, the state made absolutely sure its memory only consisted of heroic defense, never initial complicity. Part 5. Ukraine's heavy price. The true cost of lost memory. We've got to step back from the mechanics of all this state propaganda for a second and look at the human toll of this massive amnesia. Because what actually happens to a nation when its memory is hijacked like this? The renowned filmmaker and writer Alexander Dozenko really hit the nail on the head here. As he so poignantly wrote in his diary, another victim of this memory is the price Ukraine paid for the victory. Ukraine wasn't just a physical battlefield where millions perished. Its very identity became a casualty. The people were forced to mourn and celebrate under a completely manufactured set of rules. Which leaves us with a pretty chilling thought to ponder as we wrap up. We've just seen how effectively an entire state can completely erase its own violent reality, literally delete years off a global war, and manufacture a brand new memory for its citizens. If history can be curated and deleted with that kind of precision, well, who controls the history that you are consuming right now? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.